Hey, Made in America listeners. Whether this is your first show or you've been with us for 5 years, thank you so much for joining us. Please spread the word about what we're doing and the great things that are happening in manufacturing with somebody you know. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. I am really excited today. I've got Grant Branch III, CEO of Kamflex, on today. Grant, thanks so much for coming on, my man.
Thank you for having me, Ari. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, me too. Really appreciate it. I know you got a chance to come by the office actually in Chicago over the fall. I'm sorry I missed you there, but look forward to connecting in person next time I'm out there.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast. So we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, we make sanitary conveyors and we're a robot system integrator. So what that comes down to is we like to tell people that the food you ate today, there's about a 90% chance that it came across one of our conveyors, and the medicine you took today came across one of our conveyors. So we produce stainless steel equipment for food and pharmaceutical manufacturers.
Well, listen, critical stuff you got going on there, right? I eat every day. Feels like I'm taking a medicine almost every day. So happy to know that you're helping make that happen. Why do you do it, Grant? What's the why behind the what?
I truly believe that manufacturing is the backbone of America. I come from a steel town, Gary, Indiana, where, manufacturing provided jobs and income for families that built the middle class income. And I also seen what had happened when the manufacturing jobs went away. When the jobs go away, the schools go down and crime comes, everything just deteriorates. So I believe that I want to play my part in bringing manufacturing back to America. And I think that's going to be a key to our future.
Amen to that. Hopefully we're helping get the word out, and that's a big part of this podcast.
Made in America is brought to you by Compass MSP, the leader in IT services. The Compass MSP way is the combination of our standards, people, tools, policies, and techniques that result in a unique approach to managing our clients' IT needs. Find out how Compass MSP can boost your operations, improve your security, and more with our comprehensive IT managed, co-managed, and cybersecurity and compliance services. Visit us at compassmsp.com.
So Grant, could you just kind of walk us through kind of your journey, into manufacturing and frankly into Kamflex? Because I think it's a really interesting journey and the audience would get a lot out of it.
Okay. Well, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure that I give you a little background. Again, I'm from Gary, Indiana. My dream, by the way, was to get a job in a steel mill, and I thought I could make $50,000 a year and I'd be a rich man, right? And so that was my whole dream. But fortunately for me, I got an opportunity to go to college and get a job right away in manufacturing. I worked for General Motors, right? They sent me over to Milan, Italy, and I got a job in Milan working at a car plant. It was just fantastic. But I also realized at the time that I really wasn't cut off for big companies. I learned that right away because the feeling of having someone control my destiny was just scary to me. And I learned early on that General Motors, at any point, someone that I never met me, can just say, he's gone. And that's exactly what happened, right? So,
is that right?
That's
Little spreadsheet termination.
That's right. So while I'm in Milan, Italy, it didn't actually happen. That was the plan. I got wind of it that they're going to get rid of me and a team of guys, and I decided that we should start our own business. I did out of necessity because I was a 22-year-old guy in Italy, and so I kind of partied my way. I worked it during the day and partied at night, so I needed money to get back home, right? So really, I would love to say that I did it. My career has been because I'm smart and I planned it all out, but a lot of it's just been just blessings and luck, right? So yeah, I started while I was in Milan, Italy. We worked on robots there. My background is robotics, and the robots just weren't working. And one of the guys on our team, Tom, who's still one of my partners. Goes back over 34 years ago. Tom knew how to fix the robots. The parent company had no plans on fixing the robots, and Tom had a code that he could write, and he wrote a code. And I went to the plant manager and said, "Hey, look, I get these robots to work. if you just pay me to do it. I'm going to quit the company and I'll start a company and do it. And but the kicker of this is I need money now, right? You got to give me money up front to do this. And he said that no, I can't give you all the money up front, but I tell you what, if you can fix one to prove it, we'll give you the money and then we'll sign a contract with you for the rest. And we took Tom's code and it worked perfectly. So it's about 350 robots that we got running, and we started a service business. The rest of the guys quit. So at the time, there's a company called GAT Corporation, Grant, Anthony, Tom, and Tim. So
Very creative.
That's right. So we started a company to service these robots, and I got this bright idea. It's like, boy, who else has these robots in Europe? And it turns out Renault had some of them in France, and Saab in Sweden had some of these robots. And so I just took a case of a floppy disk. I don't know if you guys remember the 5.25-inch floppy.
100%.
Right.
The real floppy.
That's right. The really floppy. Exactly. So I had a suitcase full of these, right? I had a big suitcase full of floppy disk. And I would pray it wouldn't rain so my box wouldn't get wet, because if it got wet, they were no good. And I would pray they didn't get bent. And so I just went around to these plants and with a letter from Giovanni, the plant manager, who we installed the robots in. I took that letter from him to every other plant manager and said, hey, he says I'm good. Let me try it. And we did. And so the business just thrived. We thrived in Europe. I did what a 22-year-old would do. I went and bought me a brand new car to drive through the Alps and motorcycle. And so and I ended up buying a plane ticket back to Chicago. So that was the start of the business. It was a blessing for me to be able to do that, but I also got the experience. I learned a lot about myself at a young age.
What gave you the gumption, like the will to just sort of make these deals, right? I mean, you're an engineer by trade, by background, you're, 7,000 miles from home in a country that presumably don't speak the language super duper well, if at all. And you just sort of come up with this idea of like, hey, let me kind of take a shot on your robots. And then not only kind of take that and go, all right, I got what money I need to go back home, but then sort of parlay that and then take this letter and then start driving around, Europe to other countries, which you presumably also don't speak the language at all or very well, and just sort of trading that and going through all this. Where did you come up with that inner strength?
I'd say it all comes from my family, right? My mom and my dad, they had always encouraged me and my brothers and sisters is just go. Just, that's a key word in our household is go. It's above every door. So what does go mean, right? It's don't stay here. Go do something else. So I never had the fear of going to look for opportunities. But again, I will say again, a lot of this was just out of necessity. I knew I was going to get fired. There's no question about it, right? And what I say, before you get punched, you need to punch
back.
That's right. That's right. So knowing this is going to come out of necessity, but again, it really comes from my family saying, "Hey, let's just go. What do you have to lose?" And that's really the genesis of how I see the world, right? I need very little to. My wife hates this, by the way, that I need very little to be satisfied, right? So everything above where I started is a bonus for me. It truly is. So I'm thankful. So when the opportunity came, I said, look, somebody has to do this, right? And I also knew I wasn't the best engineer. That's the other side of it. Like when I say I learned a lot about myself, I was a decent engineer, but I would think I was better at sales. So Tom was a better engineer and was a horrible sales guy. And by the way, he's still my partner today. Tom found his wife. He married his wife, and he married a woman, and he's been in Italy since. He's never come back.
Never came back.
Never came back.
And you're still working with him?
That's right. He's still my partner to this day, right? In the business. So Tom is a fantastic guy. But again, he was a horrible salesman. We tried to have him go out and do sales, and he was horrible. Yeah, he's technical, right? Engineers to get straight to the point and with no personality for the most part, not all, but that was tough.
Yeah, you and I both live in that world. Had you always had sort of a sales entrepreneurial kind of bent to you? Like, did you have like a paper route when you were a kid, or a little lawn mowing business? Was that sort of something you always gravitated to, Grant, or something that you learned later?
No, absolutely. No, Ari, I didn't know the word entrepreneur. But yeah, as a kid, I had a paper route, and also I cut grass. I tell my kids about, I used to cut a yard for 50 cents, right? And then was happy, for 50 cents, and then go cut another yard for 50 cents. But I also have a paper route. And I believe that's the eye-opening, by the way, the paper route. I can remember picking up the papers, and I had to put the inserts in on Wednesdays and Sundays, and all the work that I did. So I delivered the paper, then I had to go collect the money. And this is what changed me. And literally, as a young kid, it changed me. I didn't understand why I did the work, I collected the money, and then I had to turn all the money over to somebody else.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Did you, I mean, all right, one little personal privilege, this is way off the topic, but did you get holiday bonuses ever? Like sometimes you go pick it up around holiday time, they throw in a little extra for the
That's
paper
right.
boy?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So I can remember Mrs. Locke, my favorite lady. She gave us money, gave me extra money during the holidays, right? But
Yeah.
but the idea that as a young person, the idea is that I did all the work in my mind. I didn't print the paper, of course, but I did all the labor was my labor, and I collected the money. I was accounts receivables. I didn't know that word then, but accounts
In collections too, by the way.
I mean,
They didn't pay.
right.
It was you going back out to knock the door. Yeah, yeah.
That's right, yeah. But then I give 90% of the money to somebody else. Like, how does this make sense? So yes, my entrepreneurial spirit came in way back then because it didn't make sense. I wanted to be on the other side of someone doing the work, and then I collect. I don't get 90%, but it'd be nice to get 90%.
It'd be nice to get that. So it's really interesting because you had that sort of bent to the beginning, but yet you still dreamed of kind of going to work for that big company. You had sort of talked about the steel factory. You ended up at GM, which is obviously a huge business, probably even bigger than. It's sort of interesting, that you sort of went that route. Do you ever think about why you chose the big company right off the bat?
Yeah, that's who chose me, right? And so again, Ari, you'll probably hear me say this a couple of times. Like, I won't say that I did this because I'm brilliant. It's not a brilliance in this at all. It fell into place. Coming from Gary, and you see the way things were, everybody made money at the steel mill. So who wouldn't want to work at the steel mill, right? What Italy did for me when I took the job, what it did is show me that the world was bigger than what I'd seen, right? So I think exposure is what changed me. I had the entrepreneur spirit inside of me, but I just didn't know how big the world was. And by the way, today I see how small the world is, right? I thought it was huge back then, but that's exactly it. So right out the gate, my first job, I got that taste of, boy, there's so much more out here for me to do. And what's that thing? The world is your oyster. It truly is. Yeah.
Well, listen, there's a thing I say, which I'll just leave. We'll move on to something else after this. But someone once told me that luck is when skill meets opportunity. And so when you talk about a lot of good luck, I always think about that sort of, you had this entrepreneurial skill that was inside of you, and then the opportunity presented itself, and boy, you were off to the races and made the most of it with your partners. That's pretty awesome. I'm going to pivot to a question. You mentioned this was 34 years ago, and you were working on robots. And I think everyone feels like robots are new to manufacturing. 34 years ago, not that new. Robots been around for a while, huh?
Absolutely. To this day, majority of robots in the world are in automotive plants. Automotive companies have been ahead of this game for a long time. I don't know if they've seen the labor issues that we have today. We're going to come down the pipeline, but clearly they invested in robotics a long time ago. I think more importantly is because they need high volume and they need accuracy. So they embrace the robotics of the world for so long ago. So I really, here's what I think today. The robots aren't new. They're becoming a commodity, frankly. It's what can you do with the robots, and what information can you get from the robots to where we are today.
Kind of the next iteration of things. Well, I think that can maybe kind of moves us forward, because you started a business which was not Kamflex.
That's correct.
So kind of get us through that journey, how we ended up at Kamflex.
Ari, we had an offline conversation you and I had a little bit ago, and GAT Corporation again was four guys: Grant, Anthony, Tom, and Tim. So Tom's still a partner, but Anthony and Tim are gone. I realized early on that I work better on my own. So I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. We all think we can do it on our own, and so I do believe in my case, I shouldn't say on my own, but certainly the buck has to stop somewhere, and I believe it's better for me when the buck stops with me.
Mhm.
So we started with GAT Corporation, and just a funny story. I was still in Italy, of course, and I was flying home. I finally decided it's time to move back to America, and after 3 years in Italy, in Europe, I should say, because I moved from Italy to Sweden for a while, working with Saab, and so I finally decided it's time to come home, right? So I'm back in Milan, I'm not familiar with it, but everything's unionized in Italy, and any given day, someone's going to go on strike. So this day, the baggage handlers go on strike. And typically what happens when the strike happens at the airport, you just jump in a rental car, and you drive over the Alps to Switzerland, and you fly out of Zurich. But this day, all the cars are gone, right? And so I have no choice but to find another ride there. And I hear a guy speaking English, who became a new partner of mine, Dave, fantastic guy. He was a sales guy from Detroit, who would go to Europe and find companies with machine tools and bring them back to America as their manufacturer's rep.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
and so I'm coming home with no business at all, because remember, my business in Europe. I had no
Right.
business in America, and I said, "What am I going to do?" And so I hear this guy speaking English. Say, "Hey, can I catch a ride with you to Zurich?" He says, "Sure." So between Malpensa Airport and to Zurich Airport, Dave and I started a new business together. and, and that business was service business also. He would sell the machines, and I would build a team to install and service the machines. And so again, here's another venture that it didn't come out of because I planned it. It really was out of necessity. I'm coming back home with nothing to do. So Dave gave me an idea of what I could do on the way home. So
Perfect.
yeah, exactly. So, and that's what it's been the entire time. Now, what again, just to move it forward, Dave and I were partners for about 6 years. And I decided that it would be better for me to split away from him and have my own business. And that's when my true entrepreneurial business started. Sorry about that. I realized that a lot of this was, um, a lot
Preamble.
of what I was doing was luck, right? And I thought I was smart now because I'd made a lot of money, right, for a young guy, and I thought I had it all figured out, and I started on my own this path. So no, it was not Kamflex. In between Kamflex, I've acquired 7 companies before Kamflex, and I had a model of what I was going to buy. I wanted to stick with manufacturing because it's what I know, and primarily something that supplied the automobile industry because that's what I knew.
Mhm.
And so I went along acquiring small companies from motivated sellers, as I would call them, and so until I ended up with Kamflex.
That's great. And so you're buying all these businesses. Are those now a part of Camflex, or you're out of those businesses, or kind of how does that whole thing kind of come together?
No, no, a couple of the businesses are still around. I bought some and sold others, and others I've consolidated into a different business altogether. So I do have another company based in Michigan, and we supply automotive. Well, let me change that. We were 100% automotive, and today we're more like 30% automotive and 70% ammunition or munitions.
Oh,
We
wow.
just fell it again. All right. Was that, did you say luck?
Luck is when skill meets opportunity.
Luck and skill means opportunity. I would say that's been my whole career. I'm going to use that. I'm going to tag that going forward.
Abs- Absolutely. Just send me a dime every time you use it. We'll call it
That's
even.
right. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened. For me, we had a business that supplied machines to automotive suppliers, high speed inspection and assembly machines. And we just somehow bumped into someone in the ammunition business at a trade show, and just took off. I can say we've had a straight 15-year run of sales increase 30% year over year over year. Um, for ammunition because who knew that there's always going to be people buying more and more ammo.
Yeah.
But that's a different business altogether.
It is a perishable item. So
right.
so then you get into Kamflex, which is up in Chicago, right? Not too far from Indiana, but far enough. And let's talk a little bit about that business. So why did you buy it? Like, what was interesting about the business? It's not in automotive. I mean, I guess it has the automation, but it's certainly, you talked about before, you bought a lot of businesses in auto because you knew it. This is not in auto. Like, kind of what sort of tickled your fancy about this business?
Well, I tell you, you hit exactly. I bought it because it was not automotive related. Automotive is a tough place to make a living. The revenues are massive, right, in automotive, but the margins are tight, and the people are just, should I say mean? But it's a tough business. I just leave it at that. And so, automotive supplier, and I was looking for something that could give me away from it. Here's the thing with automotive. At one time we can make a living being an automotive supplier just by being in Detroit area alone. There's plenty of manufacturers there. And over time, as the manufacturers moved to Mexico, we had to follow them to Mexico. Then they moved to China. We followed to China, and then to India. We're everywhere following around, and our margins are getting smaller and smaller as we do business with automotive. And I just wanted a place where I could make a living and not have to fight every day and chase people around the world. And I thought, what industry has much more opportunity than I came up with food. I said, people eat every day and they get rid of it every day. Right? So they have to replenish all
One
day.
way or another, they do. Yeah.
And so I said food. And I also was looking for a business that would not be exported to another country, right? And which is what happened with automotive. And food, I assumed at the time, would always be made in America. Again, back to the America thing, made in America. And then pharmaceutical, we use it every day. And so I went out to a business broker, and I said, hey, can you find me some companies in the food business, that automation companies? And I'd actually seen Kamflex. He brought me every week I'd get 10 or 15. I look at the numbers and say, hey, yeah, this doesn't match, that doesn't match. The due diligence process and going through looking for a company, especially when you don't know what you're doing, right? Right. And so I looked at Kamflex and I said, oh, it's garbage. I don't want it. The sales were down and the company, the morale of the company was terrible, and I moved on from it. A couple of years later, I looked at it again, and I looked at it from a different perspective. I looked at the customer base. And I would say that Kamflex had more conveyors installed, sanitary conveyors installed than any other sanitary conveyor company in the world. They were a global customer base. So I looked at this as, what would it take for me if I started from scratch to be able to sell something to Baxter Healthcare or Kraft Foods or General Mills? These large guys, it would take me a lifetime to be able to sell those guys. So I bought the company. I bought it for the customer base. And we're still trying to figure it out, but that's what we bought. The customer base is this unmatched amongst any small company for sure.
That's amazing.
Made in America is brought to you by Compass MSP. As a national leader in cybersecurity and IT services, Compass MSP is dedicated to helping businesses like yours achieve a competitive edge through the strategic use of IT technology. Our mission is to support you in reaching your business goals, and we are committed to being your partner in this journey. Visit us at compassmsp.com.
So just one quick second. So you've referenced a couple of times, and that's something I don't think I picked up on in our earlier conversation. You said sanitary conveyor belts. So when we think about conveyor belts, it sounds like there's like a tiering of systems, and like there's ones that need to meet, maybe it's food grade, sanitation belt. I'll let you answer. But I just noticed you've referenced that a couple of times. Can you help me understand what we're talking about there?
Well, when we're talking sanitary conveyors, it's something that has direct food contact, which means that it has to be stainless steel, right? Or something that's antimicrobial material. So that's what sanitary conveyors are. So food, direct food contact or dairy products has to be produced on a sanitary conveyor. Without it, then you get bacteria that gets into the material, or carbon steel, bacteria gets there, and it can cause recalls and infections and sicknesses. So we build sanitary conveyors.
And so are there properties in the stuff that you build to help keep them sort of sanitary over time? I got to imagine there's got to be a maintenance routine, but it's the equipment. Like how does, Like how does a sanitary conveyor stay sanitary, or is it just made in such a way that it allows you to clean it easily? Like what's the
It's made to clean easily, but also the stainless steel in itself does not absorb the bacteria in the product. Now, if it gets scratched or something, then absolutely can have. But they do. We recommend a regular servicing of the conveyors and also maintenance of the conveyors to make sure that bring the standards back up, uh, so that the bacteria can't get into the material.
So when you think about now, you've got this business, you bought a great business, you got a set of customers and a proven product line. How do you grow it from there? What's when you kind of come to the table, what are you going to bring? What are you going to add to help this thing? Because you buy a business, now you gotta help grow it, right? To make it even more profitable to pay back the investment. How'd you think about getting that going?
Well, that Ari, I wish it was that case. I did not buy a great business. I bought a business that was in terrible trouble.
Ah,
And so I didn't know how bad it was. Right. Because again, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a financials person, I'm an engineer. And I'm entrepreneur. So I bought a company that had trouble, but they had the customer base. And frankly, when I bought the company, I was going to hold on to the owner for a period of 3 years to help us transition into the business. Well, that relationship only lasted for about 6 months, and I had to fire him. So now I'm on my own, run the business I know nothing about, and had to learn the business. I brought in another general manager to try to figure it out, and I had to fire him also because he didn't know what he's doing. So initially, I end up being the guy who's running the business. But along the way, as I do, I acquired a few more companies. I acquired another robot company that supplied food, robots to food companies, specifically eggs. And then I acquired another conveyor company, a sanitary conveyor company, to roll into it. So their Kamflex is actually a consolidation of four other companies that are either robot or conveyor manufacturers. The last part of Kamflex is what's called the controls part, the PLCs and the manufacturing, what makes the machines go. We
right.
acquired a company to do that also, so we can build our own panels. My goal is to be completely vertically integrated so that I control my destiny. I believe that was the issue from the previous owner, that he relied on too many other suppliers, specifically suppliers outside of the country. And I said, I want to control my destiny so I can control my lead times and my quality.
And so is that what you viewed as the gap in the business? Because when you look at the business, right, you got to meet customer needs. Price is one thing, but then there's sort of quality and on-time delivery that really matters. Seems like you really focused on more on what can I do to control the quality and the delivery timing, and less so on like, because I imagine the outsourced decisions were initially made to cut costs.
That's right. Yeah, it comes from my background in General Motors, from automotive industry. The automotive controls everything because they have just-in-time deliveries, right? So, and they also require the suppliers to be within a 15-mile radius of the manufacturing assembly plant. So I believe that's the best way to do it. So I come in with that knowledge of saying, hey, I want my suppliers to be around the corner from me, so I can easily have access to them. No, it's great when things are going well, right? But when something goes wrong, how do you react to that? How do they react to it? I can't fly to India to every day when something goes wrong, but I can certainly drive around the corner to one of our suppliers to make sure that things are getting done properly, and to put some corrective action in place. So I learned it from automotive. I mean, I will say that I said it's a tough place to make a living, but it's a great place to learn automation.
I bet, because it really drives. Because I mean, ideally in automotive, right? You've got to maximize quality, but you also need sort of speed and minimizing costs. So you get probably a really good schooling in how to bring all that together.
Absolutely, yeah. It made a difference in my career. What I learned in automotive, and because they truly are ahead of most industries when it comes to automation. And I can't say that for everything else, but certainly when it comes to automation, automotive has always led, and they will continue to lead.
So when you think about those lessons learned that you applied to Camflex, let's just ask you straight up, the vertical integration, now that you've been doing that for a while, are you seeing the benefits of that strategy?
Yes, we do, and even more today. I think that I keep saying this, America, right? I think that's part of the issue we had in America, where we outsourced everything. Um, you cannot control your destiny if you outsource everything. So our results when our competitors couldn't get product, because it was coming from overseas. For example, during COVID, we were still up and running. We were considered essential, right? Because we were providing products that actually for the vaccine. We had some turntables we manufactured. Well, here's a proud statement I say: every turntable, every vial that of vaccine that came across from Moderna and for Moderna, I should say, was produced on a Kamflex turntable, 100% of them. So it was essential to, for us to be have our production here in America. We were able to go to our guy around the corner again to make sure we can get the fasteners even that we need, or the tabletops we would need to get it done. So yes, vertically integrated is the key to the secret of success for us.
And what about automation? I mean, have you guys really leaned into your technology background to sort of help deliver more value with the products that you deliver to your customers?
Yeah, what technology for us is a little bit different. The OT side of what we do. We are when I say lean into it, we want to provide solutions to our customer, a complete solution. Not just a conveyor. So we talk about conveyors, but really we're a robot integrator, system integrator is what we call ourselves. That's vertically integrated. So we build conveyors as just one part of our system, overall system. When we include the robotics and the data analytics side of what we do, it gives a complete solution to our customers. We're living in an unprecedented time. And I tell my people this, I tell everyone who comes to interview with us, when I say unprecedented time, here's a time in America where in the industrial revolution, the information revolution is really what we're living in. So to date, most machines in America do not have any intelligence to them. They just make the part over and over. Remember the old Lucy videos where they're chasing on a conveyor, chasing things down?
Well, the chocolate or whatever. Yeah.
Chocolate, right? Yeah. And then she's so busy that she has to eat a little bit of chocolate to keep ready, right? So, yeah, I mean, those days should be over with, right? Because the data, the analytics, and monitoring the equipment should give you the information you need to staff properly, and also to make sure you got the right inventory coming in, the raw goods coming in. So that's what we leaned into. We're not just saying, hey, we can build the widget for you. We're saying that we give you information to help you make the right decisions to build the widget and be most profitable building the widget. And we get all that from the data we pour from the machines.
And that's something you guys have learned and put together? Because I mean, one of the things I did was asking you about before the show is, there's been so much talk about IoT, about data from the machines like you're talking about, but it just still feels like in so many cases, the promise is so much better than the reality. Have you been able to cross that bridge and sort of bring together the promise, the concept, and then the reality?
Yeah, we have many case studies of us doing this because we are manufacturers. This is what we talk to our customers and say, look, if you go to the large companies and consultants, that's usually where it starts at, data analytics. They go to consultants. The consultants start from a top-down basis of how they look at data and retrieving data. We are the exact opposite. We say the information is in the machine. You need to start at the machine. You start on the shop floor. So our entire platform is built from the shop floor up versus from the boardroom down. That's truly the key to making it work. The guys on the floor know what's working, what isn't working. So we ask those questions to the people on the floor, the operators. Well, what do you see? What do you need? What makes sense to you? And we built from there. Now, sure, we have dashboards for the CEO of the company also, but the most important dashboard in manufacturing is what's happening on the floor.
And so the process, just so I can repeat this back, because hopefully people are listening and can take this to heart. What you found really works is starting at the floor and saying, hey, your job is to get this much throughput or reduce defects by this amount. What information could I give you from this machine that would truly make that outcome happen? And those people know what the answer is. And if you can deliver, we're actually going to see results. Whereas people have generally started from like the top and said, what do you want to happen? And by the time it gets down to operationally, it just doesn't help. Is that a fair summary?
That's a fair summary. And again, if you build a platform for the guy at the top, it really doesn't normally make sense to the guy at the bottom, right? And that's the issue. So we say start at the bottom and then we build layers. So the maintenance guy needs something completely different than the production manager. He needs something different from the plant manager. So you have to take, when you build anything, whether it's the machine or a software or whatever you're going to put into a system, you have to consider everybody whose hand has to touch it. And that's how we built our system. Now, our issue is scaling it, right? Because still, it's difficult for us to roll this out to everybody, that all the larger customers that we engage with. And they have agreements with other people, larger firms, consultants. So our difficulty has been, how do we convince the large guy, the Fortune 500 of the world, that this makes sense? Don't listen to the consultant. Don't listen to McKinsey. Listen to Kamflex.
Well, I'll say what, Grant, if anyone's going to figure out how to get them to listen to it, it's you. And I got to just quickly add this crazy idea. I got to run like some type of a focus group and have you talk to folks, because I can just think of like a dozen people that would love to hear how you do what you do, and figure out if they could implement that kind of, at least in their business, or think about how to do it in their world. Because I just have had conversations recently with manufacturers who just sort of like are giving up on some of these initiatives because they just can't seem to get the value out.
Yeah, that is common. You can, we call it the industrial graveyard. You know, we go to every facility in the manufacturing facility in the world has a room somewhere with old data, equipment, machines, whatever. It just doesn't work, right? They bought it. It doesn't work. So our job is to try to get them away from that as quickly as possible.
Keep things out of the graveyard. I love it. And hey, I just wanted to ask you, because I think I read kind of coming into this thing that your acquisition days are never behind you. I think you even just completed another acquisition not too long ago.
Yes, we did. We acquired a data analytics company, as I mentioned to you. For a couple of reasons. Now I'll get to the other side of who I am as a person, right? I see this time we're living in, that we're living in today, is that there's really no leader in this industrial revolution we're talking about. The bigger companies out there, they're all trying to figure it out, just like the small guys. Everywhere you go, they're talking AI, AI, AI. I hear so much, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And nobody really knows what's going on, right? And so I say, here's a time in America where the small guy, the everyman in America, can actually participate in this new revolution we're talking about. So we have initiatives that we go out to. I bought the company because I needed analytics for my customers. But the other side of it is we spend a lot of time and a lot of our money internally doing workforce development in the local schools. We start all the way at the elementary schools. We're investing in kids to teach them that if you can use your cell phone, you can participate in this new industrial revolution, right? And it's important because it's not a level playing field. It'll never be level, but it's as close as level as you're ever going to get. A new industry that's been created that you can participate in. No one's figured out how to master it just yet, right? So our little part in this world, we're trying to make sure we not just we succeed in this, and we bring other people along with us.
And where is that? So who are you working with on that? Is that partnership with some outside groups? Like, how are you making that happen?
Yeah, well, the software itself is our software that we develop and we continue to develop. But we're partnering with, for example, we're here in Illinois, College of DuPage, which is a local community college, actually the second largest college in the state of Illinois. So we have internship programs with them and apprenticeship programs with them. We also started schools, high schools, where we have high school kids that they can come in online and log into the systems, so they can move robots around. They can program the robots remotely. We're doing a lot of work. We also work with returning citizens or second chance people who have been incarcerated. Our goal here is to build. I love to say it's just because we're nice people, but the truth is it helps our business also. We had to build it because it doesn't exist. Right? That workforce doesn't exist, so we're doing our part to build it. Because I see this as, again, not just being something that for today. I see is for the next 10, 12 years, we're going to have this good run in America of data. And how do you pull the data out of those machines? As you said, 10, 15 people already that kind of gave up on it. And I'm saying that is part of it's not going to go away. The need for data is never going to go away. So as opposed to quitting, I'm saying invest in it. And that's what we're investing. Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Grant, you've done some amazing stuff. I love your story. I love what you're up to. Really appreciate you coming in and talking about Kamflex and the lean into this data. and the technology. Thanks so much for coming on today, my man. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up the show for today?
Yeah, one other thing I want to share, bring into is that there's other things that are going on in America. Again, this is called Made in America, and
Sure.
there's been another acquisition. We acquired a company in the baggage handling business called BHS, Baggage Handling Systems for Airports. The Biden administration had put out a bunch of money for infrastructure bill, and so as you can't drive down the highway without seeing construction somewhere, anywhere in America, right? That's part of infrastructure money, but also the airports are being rebuilt. So every airport you can imagine, whether large or small, are being rebuilt, and they're being rebuilt by new conveyors. So unbeknownst to most people, for O'Hare Airport, for example, in Chicago, behind those walls, where you see your baggage coming around on the carousel, behind those walls are about 35 miles of conveyors behind those walls. And to date, in America, about 90% of those conveyors are made in other countries. So we're determined to be we're an American manufacturer of conveyors, and we're determined to push our way into this industry. There are differences between sanitary conveyors than
Luggage or baggage.
luggage. There are some differences, but they're still the same, right? They're bigger, heavier, stronger. So we're pushing our way in because in America, when I say 90% of the conveyors are coming from overseas or from Europe or Asia, majority from Europe, we're partnering with some of the guys in Europe. We some companies in Europe to be their U.S. partner, so it can be domestically manufactured. You're talking to a tune of hundreds of billions of dollars that are leaving America, going somewhere else. We're saying no. It's time for it to stay home. So I'm committed to it. We've invested a ton of money to date, and we're going to continue investing money in that industry because it is a growing industry. So moving forward, regardless of who the administration is, they're all going to build in our infrastructure because it's aged. And we want to be a part of that, the growth. So I'm excited. My team's excited. They've been nothing but welcoming to us, the baggage handling business. They've been very welcoming to us, and we're going to do all we can do to make it made in America.
Well, dude, that could not have picked a better topic to close out on. That's a great idea, great concept. I love that forward-looking thing for sure. As someone who's been flying around a lot, and I've seen all the construction at O'Hare of late myself, there's a lot going on there. And to the extent that we can meet that need here at home, Grant, huge supporter, great idea, and wish you the best of luck in that.
Thank you so much, Ari.
Well, Grant, thanks for coming on today, man. Thanks for sharing your perspective and your story. It was actually really fun getting to chat with you. And we talked about grabbing a beer. Next time I'm out in Chicago, we'll definitely have to make that happen.
Sounds good. Take care. Look forward to seeing you.
All right. See you, Grant.
Bye.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.